May 5th, 2025, special council meeting to do the property tax bylaw. I want to start by acknowledging that we are gathering and governing on the unceded traditional territory of what is now known as the Charles Nation. We are grateful for their collaboration as we do this work on their lands. We have an agenda. Could I have approval for that agenda, please?
Move approval. Second. Okay.
All in favor? And we have the 2025 property tax rates bylaw. Andre, did you want to say a few words?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the purpose of this report is to present options for the 2025 property tax rates. And it reflects Council's April 28 direction on tax ratio changes. Council must determine the preferred distribution ratios and resulting tax rates. And Council must give first, second and third readings for the preferred bylaw and ensure adoption of the bylaw before the May 15th provincial deadline. So on April 28, 2025, Council requested two new scenarios with adjusted tax ratios for Class 5, light industry, the ratio from 2.74 to 3.01, and for Class 7, managed forest, ratio of 21, or the ratio 2:21 for scenario 1 and 2:25 for scenario 2. And the goal is to reduce the tax burden on Class 1 residential. The first table on page 2 of the report presents tax rates and tax ratios for each property class under each scenario as presented in the attached bylaws. The different tax ratios allocate the tax revenue differently between the different tax classes. As to the impact on property owners, the second table on page 2 presents the financial impact for the two requested scenarios compared to the tax rates presented at the April 28, 2025 council meeting and the adopted 2024 tax rates. There's a slight difference in growth taxes with both scenarios compared to the April 28, 2025. So next steps is the tax bylaw adoption is required before May 15th. Tax notices to be issued after the May long weekend, and then homeowner grants and tax deferrals administered by province. And the recommendation is in front of you. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
No questions, just some observations, I guess. In the first scenario, I'm just, well, I guess it is a question. I'm curious why the Class 6 business ends up going up. Like, it's only $2, but I don't understand why that would happen when we're adjusting the other rates.
Yeah.
I think it goes down by 13, the other one it doesn't, but I guess so.
Well, the going down by 30 the other way makes sense because everything
We're
is,
increasing the other one.
everything's coming down because the other one
Yeah.
is paying a larger share of it, but I didn't understand why.
Yeah, it's still still a $2 increase. To be quite honest, do you know the answer to that? Just it basically.
I'm wondering if that's something that's not quite right in the spreadsheet or something that's causing that error.
It's probably to do with the growth taxes. It's probably, because it impacts that, and then, I don't 100% sure, no, I didn't really, but,
But we can certainly look into that.
yeah,
And there's
definitely
something.
we'll make sure that there's nothing real wrong with it. Like, we did look quite carefully at the workbooks because of the, the Class 7 goes from 1,000 to like
Yeah.
20, like almost $3,000 with the other, so we did definitely take a really good look at a few, like to make sure that it was all working, but.
Yeah, yeah, we'll certainly look into that, whether that. Yeah.
Well, my observation here is just the sensitivity is how it's used really help this because the degree of increase we would have to place on light industry, particularly, in order to gain a small but not nothing reduction in class one.
Yeah, that's what
It's
I
that
noticed.
distribution, we're
Yeah.
so weighted to residential
Yeah,
Yeah,
out there.
yeah,
In order to try and keep people's residential taxes down, which is one of the purposes of having industry as well as employment. But one of the purposes of having industry is to cross subsidize infrastructure for
Right.
But this means the scenario 2 is a 40% tax rise for industry versus a 7 point something, which is in line, because everybody previously was 7 point something. Right?
yeah. Recognizing like, 50% is lower than that, 50% is higher, it's the median assessment we used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
But
give
still,
about
it's
a
gonna be the
40%.
same, yeah,
Yeah. Which is a lot.
yeah. No, I noticed that too, it was interesting, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
And what we gain from that is that the average rise from single family assessment goes from being 7.1-ish% tax rise for a household to 6.6%.
Mhm.
Which is
Yeah.
a more comfortable number, certainly, for the
Mhm.
community out there. The question is, do we wish to impose that jump? Because it's really a normalization, isn't it? It's bringing the tax ratio of
business
class
and
5 in
business.
line with class 6.
Yeah, 5 and 6 in one.
Yeah,
That's what we're aiming to do, but it
Yeah.
means that this year there'll be
there'll be a big jump.
a noticeable big industry.
if that is what you're trying to do, I would also just recommend that maybe, that, you give us that direction to probably keep those the same going forward, and then we'll always do that for you.
Yeah, that
So it doesn't.
gradient, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we haven't raised the rate for light industry maybe ever. I don't remember doing that. I think we kept it low because we had such little and we wanted to incentivize that development. And now that it's coming
Mhm.
online, we're trying to rationalize that.
there might have been one time where you
Fairness.
guys did move it a little bit, because it was getting pretty low compared, like,
Yeah.
when there was a big difference.
How do these drift apart?
Um,
If they were together at one point, how does it?
They might not have been together, but how they drift apart is, it's the rate of increase in the assessments compared to the rate of increase for the residential. So in periods of really big growth in the residential, now I better not say that because I can't quite remember how it's related, like I used to know this. But yeah, it's when the, I would say that probably I can guess. So you've had a big increase in your class 6, right? Because of all the growth that's been happening. And so the rate of increase in their assessment is higher than the rate of increase in, say, other classes or whatever. And particularly, like, so light industry, the market value only went up 0.6%, but business went up 1.3. And if that keeps happening, it just, you start to see that natural, because it really is just, it's all based on, okay, you got a tax rate increase of 6 point whatever, and you want to spread it out throughout all the different classes equally, but the assessments are all different. They're not
The
equal.
assessment impacts how it spreads.
That's right.
So the ratios drift apart. I think.
But that changes the multipliers then, or you guys adjust the multipliers because of those?
No, you
Changes
guys
in
can only
assessment.
adjust the multipliers. That just naturally changes the multiplier because the assessment, so how it is the assessment is, takes the assessment base, takes it says, okay, this is what the revenue was last year for that class. We want a 7% increase, 7 point whatever, and then this is how much revenue we need now. Then it goes, take that and divide it by the assessment base and times it by 1,000. So that's how the calculation comes in, and it does that for all of them. And it just takes, whatever revenue you guys had generated for that class last year, it adds that exact equal percentage. And it changes the rate, which then, when it's all based on depending on the rate of increase.
Kind of, so
Yeah.
it does change those multipliers then,
Yeah,
that way, I see.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
it totally does.
okay. So what that means is that the value of the light industry light industry has not been getting the same increases, I guess they have, they just haven't been getting
It
the
has to
values
do-
of the
yeah.
properties just haven't moved as fast.
That's right, they had no growth this year. And they probably had a fair amount of growth last year, but for some reason, there's a few properties out on Bevan that's not class 5. And I was kind of hoping that
Right.
they're class 6 because of the type of,
Yeah.
like that storage unit out there is like class 6. and- But yeah, so they probably had a bit of a hit last year, and it might have moved it up a little bit, the ratio, but not as much. But
Neil,
They had no growth.
anything from the little box on the table?
I'm here.
Councilor Markey?
I'm kind of in favor of scenario 2. I've been this earlier. Yeah. Farmland on it.
Scenario 2
It's a
is
big,
what I'm hearing.
it's a big hit, that's for sure. Have we had any, I guess we wouldn't have feedback right away. How does this bring us in line, with other communities? Have you looked at that at all?
Do you hear my question?
Oh, no,
How does it
sorry.
bring us in line with other communities?
Light industry.
Yeah, you do have that chart in here.
Yeah, but I think that's
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 from
just
last year. We
residential.
don't-
like last year, and that's
Yeah.
residential.
It's just
I don't know what other
residential, yeah.
communities are doing this
Yeah.
year. Yeah, we don't get that information, Neil. We're sort of ahead of the,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I figured that it's a hard question to ask. I mean, folks that are here are probably, we're not driving investment out. I don't think,
No.
no, you know, I don't know, I see a scenario 2 being reasonable.
Yeah, and I will also say that in the past, like the business class has jumped considerably.
It has,
Yeah, so I feel like this equalization is really
yeah.
fairer.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I can,
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, you're looking at, otherwise businesses are kind of subsidizing light industry within.
Mm-hmm.
And light industry, like, they use up a fair bit of resources in comparison to a business, I think, so.
And if you look at the average assessments,
Mm-hmm.
right,
Yeah,
the scenario 2, there's $11,000 on a $600,000 valuation. So if you doubled that valuation, you'd be $22,000 in taxes on a 1.2 million,
yeah.
Yeah,
when light industry is still paying
yeah.
yeah,
less than
Yeah.
that.
yeah,
That's a good point.
yeah.
I will,
Agree.
So it
Yeah.
it does bring it much more in line, like,
In line.
it looks like a big number, but it's because the valuation for a light industry median property is almost 1.5 million,
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is why that $1,000 increase looks so large. If
Yeah.
it was more in line with the average business, then it would only be a $450 increase, and it'd be like, well.
so it's relative.
Yeah, and as I remind folks in the business world, if you hold your prices low for too many years, there comes a time when you have to bring them up to market, and that's super painful.
Yeah,
And so, and we've been doing that a bit, and this is, it's uncomfortable. I don't like to raise taxes on anyone. No one does. But I think this is appropriate.
and we can do it, Like, we can give you those numbers each year if that's what you wanna try and, like, if that's the policy you wanna kinda go with.
Yeah.
Keep those competitive with each other, those ratios, then we can give you those numbers and then you get to see it right away. And
Yeah.
then you can see how it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
One thing I'll also point out is, so you had a 7.83 overall increase of taxes, right? But then it drops it down in the two scenarios because
Yeah.
the biggest taxpayer is paying, you know,
Yeah.
so that's one good thing, like you went to 7.17 in scenario 2 and 6.57 in scenario 1, 6.57 in scenario 2. So you
Which
kind
is
of
by far
lowering
the
the
lowest
taxes.
tax increase in the valley.
So you guys,
On the
yeah.
island.
Yeah.
No, I think Campbell River said they're
Oh,
coming in
Campbell
at
Rivers.
3.
Yeah, well,
But-
that's, yeah.
But I don't know.
Must be a
which
reason
graph
for
that
it,
is.
And then,
I do.
you know, if you look at the distribution, right, it's just under 75% is the residential, that's how much their assessment is of everyone.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, light industry is just under 4% of the whole, and then your class 6 is 16% of the whole assessment. So it does, it's just the way, like, I was hoping that those properties would be classed 5, and then you would start to build that assessment for, and some of them are class 6. So let's see what phase 2 does.
Yeah,
I feel we did a great deal of work at budget time to stay within the financial plan, and that was successful, and not to have to raise taxes higher than the kind of 5-year plan. And the percent, and now this work we're doing, staff's done. It's nice to see that we're able to keep that actually for the residential payers below that announced.
We got that 7% mark.
Yeah, no, really good.
Yeah.
okay, so there's a motion there, recommendation, first, second, and third.
I'll recommend that council give first, second, and third readings to scenario 2.
Okay, so that is 2025 property tax rate bylaw number 1233.
Okay,
Okay, so I'll try that again. The
Yeah.
council give first, second, and third reading to 2025 property tax rate bylaw number 1233, 2025, scenario 2.
seconded?
Second.
Oh, you got that.
Councilor Barecki seconded, all in favor? Excellent.
All
Thank
right.
you for that.
Yep, thanks,
Um,
guys.
Any
Thank you.
questions?
Just take a second, I have to open my email.
I was like, oh my God, do we have a question?
Let me check.
There's no one here for you people, for everyone watching at home, there's no one in the audience.
While Rachel's doing that, one thing we were talking about is, you know, the completed roll and the revised roll, there's a big difference for tax rates, but it could actually help you guys. You could bring a report so you can look at all these ratios with the completed roll. I don't, like, it'll still change by the time you get to the revised, but it's not a huge change unless something major happens, right? So you have more time to think about it and,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It just kind of came to us the other day when we were talking.
Yeah.
Does that help our decision making into, or do we need that, is that just for information? Is it next year that would be?
It'd be more useful for next year.
yeah.
Yeah, it would be, next year we would have to do it,
During
but we
the
could bring it then,
process, yeah.
because the completed roll comes in January, so we could bring it much earlier, because the quick turnaround, this is why you guys have to do a special meeting when you wanted to change the ratios, is there's such a quick turnaround between the revised roll coming and the
Yeah.
deadline for taxes. So we thought maybe we could bring that, and you guys could look at and actually make your policy changes at that point. And then it might not work out perfectly, but I think it would be enough.
Try, no questions? Okay, then we can adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, good night, Councilor Barecki, thank you for being
Thank you
here.
very much.
Okay, night.
Thanks,
everyone.
Okay, good luck out there. We'll see you soon.
Oh,